What's going on YouTube? This is Ribo back at the bench, and today I've got another cut or carry knife review, this time looking at the Spyderco Stovepipe. I think the new motto for the channel should be long overdue, and that has just kind of become the theme of my channel, and I'm just gonna own it at this point. It goes for this knife. I've had this for a few months and keep meaning to do a video, and it just goes for content in general. Look, I'm in a new career, young kids, running a couple businesses, and the channel is a lot of fun, but it doesn't pay the bills and there are just other priorities. So this is kind of gonna just be a when time allows thing, and I've just gotta accept that at this point. But anyway, back to today's video, the Spyderco Stovepipe. So this is a knife that when I first saw it, I was very intrigued just because it is kind of one of those, you know, fancy Spyderco titanium knives that have become, I don't know if I want to say popular, but they've come out more and more in recent years. And this one certainly looked interesting. And so I thought I needed to check it out. I was selling a Sebenza, surprise, surprise, because I'm always going through Sebenzas. And I ended up working out a trade for the Stovepipe. So was very, very excited to get one of these in. And just to spoil things a little bit, I was very excited to get it in. And once I got it in, I really had no interest in it, and it kind of fell off the radar for me. So it's been sitting on my desk for a while, weeks and weeks, and I keep meaning to film a video talking about exactly why I was somewhat disappointed. And so here's that video right now. As you can see, little bugs and wood dust and all kind of stuff on the bench. Okay, so let's get into a size comparison, and then we will get into what I like and dislike. So this is a very interesting knife in a lot of ways, and the first thing is that it's an interesting size. So when you look at pictures of this, and you kind of even look at this from a distance, you may think this is a huge knife, and in some sense it is. It is some thick titanium, thick pocket clip there. You can see that chunky blade. It's huge in one way, but it is deceptively small in terms of sharpened blade length and just the overall size of the knife. So a couple things that I wanted to show it up against just to get that idea. So one, the Spydey Chef, which you can see has not been sharpened or cleaned in a little while. So Spydey Chef, which I would say is on the larger size, but is not a massive knife. And then a Sebenza 31 large, which you can see, and this one was recently oiled. That's probably what that is. That is, threw some oil on that after a recent sharpening. And so you can see that the Sebenza absolutely dwarfs it. Although if you were to put these two side by side, it is much chunkier than really either one of these. And then because of that distinctive kind of cleaver style blade, I did want to just bring out the Kaiser mini sheepdog that I love so much. And it's actually probably a better size comparison. Actually, let me reach into my pocket really quick and grab my trusty 31 small. And it's actually a lot closer in size to the 31 small. It actually may be even a little bit smaller in terms of sharpened blade length. Which is really interesting when you look at the size, because immediately you just think it's a much bigger knife than it really is, and it's not really packing that much when it comes down to it. Okay, so let's get these off camera, and we will get into the things that I like and dislike about the Spyderco Stovepipe. Okay, so things that I like. So first of all, 20 CV, always a good thing to see. Great steel, no issues there. Taichung Spyderco means a lot of things, and that's great. So that's a good thing as well. It's a high quality knife. The action on this knife is very good, although I have not gotten the flick down, and you can see it's awkward to do it on camera, so I'm not even gonna try to flick it out. The slow roll is typically how I go these days with any knife, but the action on it is very good. It is very, very smooth on the open and the close. It does have that frame lock, and so it has a very nice disengage, and you see that double right there. Very, very smooth. Honestly, the action of the knife is probably the thing that I like the most. It is, I would say, drop shutty, and it falls with a really nice close. I don't know if you can hear that, but just a very satisfying action, and that's a really, really great thing to see. Other things that I like, I do really like the pocket clip. So this is an interesting titanium pocket clip you can see here, and if you compare that to just your pretty standard wire fold over deep carry clip. A lot of people do not like the fold over wire deep carry. I am a fan, but I do really like this. I think this is something that's a little bit new and pretty neat to see. It's fairly basic, but it does the job just fine. I think it really does hold with the overall look of the knife. I think it does that, but it also doesn't do that at the expense of function, which is a lot of times what happens. A lot of times cold steel and others, maybe even something like this, which I don't think is excellent. This one is much better than the one that's on the G10 version. But a lot of times doing these kind of milled titanium looking knives, the pocket clips just won't function that well. And I've actually been pretty impressed with the Stovepipe. I think that it's a really, really nice clip. Unfortunately, that's close to where it ends for me. You probably could tell by the fact that I was going on about the pocket clip on the knife. While I am a fan of cleaver blades in general, and again, I'll just bring this on camera to prove that, I do really have a soft spot for cleaver style blades like this. This one really, really does not do it for me. And I guess I'll just go ahead and get into why. So transitioning now to things that I dislike about this knife. One of the things that attracted me to the knife was that it was this kind of funky, beefy cleaver style blade. And I thought very similar to when I was initially interested in the Yojimbo, that I would maybe like that. But what I found, and it's the exact same issue I had with the Yojimbo, or the Yojumbo, although I don't think I ever actually tried a Yojumbo. But what I found was the whole benefit to me of a cleaver style blade in everyday use is that you have, like this, a stronger, more exposed blade that you can use, similar to a box cutter or something like that. It's something that gives you a lot of great kind of piercing and slicing and just general utility in a blade like this, which is why I love this knife. But what I found with both of these Spyderco kind of weird knives is that by having this really thin point on such a beefy blade like this, and I can't say that this is necessarily by that I have tested this and it's by experience, but this is just how I, in my mind, use the knife. You lose a lot of that utility and practicality when you have this really, really thin edge and point up here. When you don't have that stock behind that tip right there, that just makes me super, super worried about breaking that tip off. I mean, that will break off eventually. And you have just an absolute straight edge right there, which I'm not a huge fan of anyway. I trust something like this over the long haul a lot more than I trust something like this. And I don't, I'm not the smartest guy, but I don't think anyone would really disagree with me there. And I don't think, after seeing the knife and kind of playing around with it, I'm not sure that anyone's going to disagree with that. And I'm not really sure that anyone's going to care. Because I have a sense that if you're buying this knife, it's probably not necessarily to be your daily carry. And unfortunately for me, like I'm fairly practical, so I like tools. I like things that can be used. I don't really have any art knives or art watches or things like that. I like to use my stuff. I like to enjoy it. This is just not a knife that I would use for that reason alone, and then for some other reasons on top of that. Secondly being that it is just massive. I mean, this is a big knife in the pocket, and I don't mean just the thickness of the titanium, which is certainly a part of it. I mean, you can see that this, and this again, very, very similar to the Ojimbo, this has that super beefy blade stock, which I'm not totally against. But you have a blade stock that is nearly the same size as the slabs of titanium on each side. So you just have a very, very thick knife. You have a fairly big pocket clip here. So you're already looking at a lot of thickness in the pocket, but then watch what happens when you close this knife. Check that out. Look how much width that is taking up in the pocket. You know, one, it's a heavy knife, it's a thick knife, but also look at all that pocket space that this is taking up. Compare that to something like the Spyderco Chef here, which yes, it's you know, maybe roughly the same. Actually, no, it's not. It's still larger, but look how thin the Spyderco Chef is compared to the Stovepipe here. You're getting a lot more blade here, a lot more knife, a lot more practicality. This has the same thing I talked about a minute ago, where you've got, you know, something of a cleaver style here, but you've got a little bit thicker. It's going to hold up over time. But if you combine just the weight and the width in the pocket, and the fact that for all of that, you're just not getting a lot of blade length here, and what you're getting is probably going to break off, or is going to be susceptible to that, I just don't get why you would carry this knife. It is definitely not geared to guys like me. There are other things I could talk about. I don't know how practical this is. I mean, I can see this maybe being intentional, but I don't know when I'm going to be doing that in my daily life. I mean, what are we typically actually using our knives for? I don't really know how often I am going to have to really bear down. And that reminds me of something else, which is the ergonomics. You would kind of think, just with the balance of this, where you almost have that counterbalance there, that the ergos might be okay on this, and they're not horrible, but they're not great. And this is why, unless it's done right, I really dislike the finger choils being on knives. I really prefer something like this, unless it's done really, really well. Like the Manix 2 is done very aggressively, but for me, it works really, really well. This does not. This just feels awkward to me, this hump in particular, because I feel a little bit crowded up here, pushing into the edge right there. This feels a little bit awkward. And then if I really wrap around to kind of do one of these grips, it's just not comfortable, especially back here. It's okay up on front, but I'm still a little bit closer to that than I would like to be. And overall, the ergonomics just don't do it for me. There are probably other things that I could say, but you know, I'm not really in the business of trashing knives. This one's just not made for me. If I'm gonna spend this type of money on a knife, I am going to spend it, and I mean, if you've watched the channel for any given amount of time, you know this is coming, right? I'm gonna spend it on something like a Sabenza. Not necessarily Sabenza. I think there's some great Spydercos and other brands out there. I would even probably want a Hinderer over something like this. It's just not something that would ever find its way into my pocket. I don't find the design particularly appealing. It's not my style, and it's just too big and bulky for practical use. That said, super excited that I got to take a look at it. It was fun to just have it on the desk to say I've seen it and get a video out there. Interested to hear your thoughts. There's clearly a market for this knife. And so would love to hear other thoughts. And if you think I'm totally wrong and it is a very practical knife, feel free to drop a comment below. I'd love to read through those. Don't always get the chance. In fact, I almost never actually respond to comments, but I do read almost all of them. So supporters and trolls alike, I'm typically seeing what you're posting. So please keep that up. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.